I've worked as a designer for 10 years now, and to celebrate, I wanted to share all of the favorite tips and tricks that I use every day in my business. Have you ever wondered why some designs feel balanced and some don't? A lot of experienced designers use grids to lay out their work, both for print design and for digital work. Grids help us structure our design so we can create something more interesting and creative without things getting too messy. There are so many different types of grids, so I highly recommend this book called Making and Breaking the Grid by Timothy Samara. Whenever you want to create a more dynamic design that feels a little bit more custom, try layering your imagery and your text. You can do this by cutting out your main subject, either through a clipping mask in Adobe products or even through Canva's background remover, and then starting to layer the different elements. Keep a copy of the original image as the background. If you're using this technique, make sure that you're thinking strategically about where the text is placed, so you're not running into legibility issues. Pairing fonts is a huge topic in design, and the one thing you really want to keep in mind is contrast. We can achieve this by either using very different weights in the same font, or by using, for example, a serif and a sans serif option together.
Serifs have these little flourishes, and sans serif literally means without serifs.
If I would share only one piece of advice for new designers, is to always focus on hierarchy. First, pick out what's most important. Then use tools like color, sizing, and contrast to create the hierarchy that you're after. Take a step back and make sure that the right information is the most obvious. It can feel really tempting to continue to add elements to a design when you're working on it, because you really want to show all your different skills to a client. However, one of the most important skills in design is to see where we can use whitespace. When an area is kept simple, it gives a lot more breathing space to the other things that we really want to highlight. Be an inclusive designer. Since we shape media, marketing, and a lot of the things that people see day to day, it's important to have a think about a positive impact from our work. Whenever you're designing, have a think about how you're portraying people and how you can make your designs more accessible to different people. From the photos you're using to adding alt tags or using a contrast checker, for example. Small changes really make a big difference, and they start becoming a part of your natural workflow. It's really easy to get lost in the visuals of a design as we're creating, but our core job as designers is actually to focus on the function of a design. What is this piece of design trying to say, and how can I use messaging and visuals to actually communicate this? To do this, we often have to become a bit more familiar with our client's business and where the end use case of this piece of design will be. Colors are one of the best tools we have to create a mood in a piece. But how do you pick colors that work well together? If you're struggling to find a good color palette, try either monochromatic, analogous, or complementary color palettes. Adobe Color is a great tool to check out for this. Repetition is a great way to create a lot more cohesion and balance in your design. From a consistent layout for social media templates to a whole visual identity that's using recurring elements. This way your design feels a lot more intentional, and we can also cut away at some of the time coming up with new ideas and elements. Design is a type of language, and following certain rules will help make your design more effective. For example, you're probably used to seeing the next button in the bottom right corner, while the back button is in the top left. In the same way, page numbers are usually also at the bottom right. If we're trying to be innovative, make sure you keep these design language tools in mind, and make sure it doesn't make your product or design confusing in the end. Even if you design for print, most designs will end up online in some shape or form. With so many people using their phone, it's really important to think about responsive design choices. This might mean designing different versions, considering different croppings for different platforms, for example. Odd numbers often look better. This has been a well-known rule for interior designers for a very long time, but I also think it's true for graphic design. Unless you're going for a very structured and symmetrical look, have a play around with using odd numbers. This can give your design a bit more energy, and it usually makes it feel a little bit more natural than having an even number of elements. The most effective designs make us feel something. Have a think about how you can use humor, recognition, or other emotions to really connect with the end user of your design. You can use photography, messaging, or any other design tools that you have at your disposal. If you want to create a more branded experience using the logo design, try using it as a window to cut out either photography or as a colored shape. If the logo is a little bit too complex to do this, you can pick out a part of the logo and do the exact same strategy. Just because something is created digitally doesn't mean that it can't have any tactile emotions connected to it. Using textures, hand-illustrated fonts, and illustrations can be a great way to add a lot more personality to a brand and make a design feel a little bit less digital. Just like we don't want every single piece of furniture in our home to be along the wall, not every single piece of design has to be horizontally laid out. Try playing around with flipping text around in different directions, and this can be extra helpful if you're working with text that is a little bit lower on that hierarchy ladder that we talked about. because then readability isn't as important. But of course, make sure you're still keeping readability in mind. The little details make all the difference. Adding a little annotation to each page that's laid out the same, or a little bit of a special way to do page numbers can make all the difference and make your design feel a lot more custom. Photography and illustrations should not be an afterthought, even if they are stock. These are some of the most effective tools that you have to actually set the mood. So if you're creating an ad or a banner for a homepage, for example, sometimes starting with the right photograph can really make all the difference. Copy is an art in itself. So if your client doesn't feel super comfortable, try considering teaming up with a copywriter to really get your design to the next level. And finally, it's okay to have fun and break some design rules. The reason we talk about all these different things as rules is because we really want to know the foundations and why a design works a certain way to actually be able to make choices that are smart if we want to deviate away from that. The most important thing with design is to keep the brief in mind, keep the client and the audience in mind, and make sure that you're making choices that will elevate that and best communicate what the goal is. I really hope this was helpful, and if you have any questions at all, make sure to leave them in the comments. And also, if you have any more tips that have really been important for your own creative career, make sure to leave them as well so that we can all help each other out. If you're just starting your own design business and you want to kickstart with everything that's important in terms of templates and process, we actually have a startup bundle that you can go and check out in our shop right now. Thank you so much for watching and good luck with your projects. See you next time.